everyone. Welcome back to From the Dark Side. I'm your host, Sherry, and I'm so glad to have you here with me today. We've got an unsolved case. We're talking about Maura Murray, a 21-year-old college student who went missing one night in the immediate aftermath of a minor car accident. Maura Murray became a mystery that more than 2 decades later still haunts the investigators, her family, and thousands of strangers who became captivated by her story. This is one of the most popular missing persons cases out there. This is episode 178, The Case of Maura Murray. We're going back to 2004 for this one. Bratz dolls were the most popular toys. Shrek 2 was the fan favorite film of the year. Uggs became a big fashion item. McDonald's got rid of supersized items. Kids, we used to be able to go into a McDonald's, and if you wanted something larger than a size large, you could tell them you wanted it supersized. Everyone was quoting lines from Napoleon Dynamite. And in weird news from 2004, New Zealand held a Running of the Sheep event where 2,000 sheep were supposed to parade through the town. It started as this nice, organized line of sheep all walking together, and then the sheep scattered and began running in all different directions, causing mass chaos, and people were tracking down lost sheep for days. Maura Murray was born May 4th, 1982. She grew up in Hanson, Massachusetts. Her father, Fred, worked in maintenance. Her mother, Laurie, worked as a nurse. The family was tight-knit, but life wasn't always easy. Fred and Laurie divorced when Maura was 6 years old. Maura was especially close with her father, Fred. He described her as my star. In high school, Maura was a heck of an athlete. She ran cross country, she played basketball, she competed in track. Her dad, Fred, was the coach. She was a leader and a competitor. Her friends described her as sweet, funny, and driven. She ranked 4th in her high school class and had a near-perfect SAT score. That's incredibly impressive. After graduating high school in 2000, she was accepted into the prestigious West Point Military Academy, where she studied chemical engineering. West Point doesn't just accept anyone, they have a 14% acceptance rate. Senator Edward Kennedy wrote Maura's letter of recommendation. Maura and her sister Julie were both accepted to the academy. Julie is 2 years older than Maura, and the two of them were very close. But she didn't stay. After a year and a half, Maura transferred to the University of Massachusetts. The reason for this transfer is Maura wasn't happy at West Point, and there was an event that happened when Maura and a group of cadets were touring Fort Knox. She was with a group at the gift store, and Maura stole a makeup item. The item was under $5, but that didn't matter. She still stole something. Maura was caught and had to go to a disciplinary hearing. She was now part of the nursing program at University of Massachusetts. She also worked part-time at the security desk at the college. It seemed like a fresh start, but Maura's life at UMass wasn't without complications either. In November 2003, Maura got in trouble for credit card fraud. According to police records, she found a credit card, and instead of turning it in, she used the card to order $70 worth of food delivery. She did this a few times. Eventually, the charge was dismissed, but Maura had to pay back the money she used. She was also balancing a long-distance relationship. Her boyfriend, Bill Rausch, was an Army officer stationed in Oklahoma. They kept in touch by phone and email and somehow made it work. The week before Maura disappeared was strange. There's a lot of drama, so let's get into it. Just like the last case I talked about, there's a lot of misinformation out there, especially regarding the days leading up to Maura's disappearance. There's been whole podcast episodes devoted to just separating fact from fiction. I'll try to piece this together as best as I can, and I apologize in advance if I'm missing anything. Her family, led by Sister Julie, actually put out a several-part podcast series just to quiet the misinformation surrounding this case. I'll talk more on that later. On February 5th, 2004, around midnight, Maura was working the security desk at her dorm when she received a call that seemed to upset her. This phone call made her very emotional and she was crying. When her supervisor came over, all Maura said was, "My sister." The exact content of the phone call was never publicly confirmed until 13 years later. According to After the Crash on Oxygen, Kathleen finally explained what that call was about. Kathleen was a recovering alcoholic who had just been discharged from a rehab clinic that evening. On the way home, her fiancé took her to a liquor store, which caused a relapse. Maura's supervisor tells her it's okay, don't worry about the rest of your shift, and she walked Maura back to her dorm room. On Saturday, February 7th, 2004, this is 2 days after that mystery call, Fred Murray, Maura's dad, came to visit. He did this usually once a month. He would pop in to visit and he would get a hotel nearby. He would spend the days with Maura and then go home Sunday night. So Maura owns this black 1996 Saturn Ion, but it had been giving her some troubles. It was drivable, but starting to have issues. So Fred, being the awesome dad that he was, is going to take Maura car shopping. He comes to town and gets a hotel room. I guess they didn't find the car they wanted, so they decided they would try the next day. That night, Maura wanted to go to a party, so she borrowed her dad's Toyota Corolla while he stayed at his hotel. Maura left the party at around 2:30 in the morning. On her drive back, she crashed Dad Fred's car into a guardrail on Route 9 in Hadley, Massachusetts. According to the police report, no field sobriety test was given. Maura is uninjured but super upset with herself. Here her dad came to visit her, buy her a car, and she totaled his car. The insurance company estimated the car had $8,000 to $10,000 in damage and was a total loss. Her dad wasn't upset. He was glad she was uninjured, but he was super concerned about the insurance claim. By 10:30 a.m., he had already talked to the insurance company and they agreed it would be covered. There's a lot of talk about several trips to the ATM. Fred had withdrawn a few $1,000s. This was due to him needing money to purchase Maura a car. He could only get out so much at a time, so he had to make several different withdrawals. I don't know why people are so fixated on this. Fred said he's old school. He likes to pay for things in cash. I think a lot at first think he helped Maura disappear, but that didn't end up being the case at all. I can't find anything that shows Fred and Maura purchased a car that weekend. I know Maura had told a friend they had narrowed it down to 2 that she really liked. Maybe they had plans to wait until the next weekend and then buy one. I have no idea, but Fred has gone home. The next day, this is Monday, February 9th, 2004. This is the start of a new regular school week. After the last week that Maura had, it was a fresh start. But the strangeness doesn't stop. She had clinical nursing classes scheduled, but there is no record of her attending them that day. Investigators will later learn that during the day, instead of going to her classes, Maura was in her dorm room packing up. She took her textbooks with her and a bunch of other items, but left her desktop computer. She didn't leave her roommates a note or anything like that. She sent an email to her boyfriend Billy that read, "I got your messages, but honestly, I didn't feel like talking to much of anyone. I promised to call today, though. Love ya, stud." At 1:00 p.m., Maura sent an email to her professors stating there had been a death in her family and that she would be gone for approximately a week. But there was no death in the family. Maura had made it up. Her family confirmed this. At around 3:15 p.m., Maura used an ATM located in Amherst to withdraw $280 from her bank account. The surveillance footage shows that she was alone. She was not visibly distressed. She approached the ATM and performed the transaction. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, and no one was with her. Her bank account at this point contained only a small remaining balance, so that $280 pretty much cleared it out. After going to the ATM around 3:30 p.m., Maura went to a nearby liquor store. There she purchased a box of Franzia red wine, a bottle of Kahlua. The two of them together would be a horrible combination. My stomach hurts just thinking about it. She also purchased several individual alcoholic beverages. Again, surveillance footage confirmed she was alone and her behavior appeared normal. She placed the alcohol into her black Saturn sedan. Keep in mind, this is the same car she is getting ready to get rid of. She hadn't gotten her new car yet. She then left town and began driving north. So where was Maura heading? Investigators learned she had made a couple calls earlier in the day to a rental property in New Hampshire and another rental property in Stowe, Vermont. No reservations were made during these calls. She was just inquiring about them. One of these places, and I'm not sure if it was the New Hampshire one or the Vermont one, but one of them was a place that she used to vacation with her family at. She made one last call to her dorm room, and that was the last call ever made on her cell phone. Maura is driving north for whatever reason. She's reached New Hampshire. It was snowing and the temperatures were below freezing. Snow is covering the road and she needs her windshield wipers on in order to see. There's two kinds of people who can drive in snow and ice and people who can't. I fall into that second category. I got stuck in snow before and I couldn't move. My tires were just spinning. It was pretty traumatizing because I was on a hill and I couldn't go anywhere. I thought I was going to slide backwards into someone's house or someone was going to hit me. I don't want to put my life at risk or, more importantly, someone else's life at risk, so I don't drive in more than an inch of snow, even though I have a full-size SUV. Maura is braver than I am because she's doing it, and she's in her little Saturn car. It's the evening and it's dark, and Maura is cruising along these icy roads. We know that Maura traveled up Interstate 91 in Vermont, and then she went east towards New Hampshire. She entered Haverhill, New Hampshire sometime after 7 p.m. Maura was cruising along a backcountry road. She's about 2 hours away from her college campus she left. At 7:27 p.m., a resident on Route 112 heard a loud sound outside her home. She looked out and saw a black Saturn sedan off the road, nose first into a snowbank, facing the direction from which it had come. The car was spun out and crashed. This person in their house who sees what just unfolded doesn't go outside. I don't know if this person called 911 or not, but I can't imagine seeing a car crash right outside your house and you just close the window blinds and go back to your TV show. But a few moments later, someone else who lives on this road was driving home from work. An older man by the name of Butch Atwood. Butch is a big burly man who works as a local school bus driver. He's got his bus out late this evening because he was dropping students off from a field trip. He saw this car crashed right before a turn, and he got out and stopped to make sure the driver was okay. Butch's recollection of events to police was the most important since he was the last person to see Maura. According to his statement, Maura was alone. He says that she was definitely shaken up, but she told him she wasn't injured. She wasn't slurring her speech or stumbling around, just a little shaken up. Butch tells her he will go home and call the police. She told him not to do that. Maura says she already called AAA. So this is strange because Maura is telling him she called AAA for a tow, but in 2004, there was no cell phone service in this area. In fact, 20 years later, there still wasn't cell phone service in this area. Of course, Maura's cell phone records were checked to see if she somehow managed to call AAA, but there was no record of any calls at all. Butch told investigators that Maura appeared anxious and eager to end the interaction with him, but she wasn't disoriented or confused. He even asked her if she wanted to come wait at his house until the tow truck got there. She basically is telling him politely to just go away. I'm fine. I've got a tow truck on the way. Just leave me alone. I imagine, and this is just an opinion, but Maura has got to be feeling some kind of way right now. Here she crashed her dad's car less than 48 hours ago. Now she crashed her car. She's probably feeling pretty upset. Butch knew there wasn't cell phone service there, and there's no way she made a call to AAA, so he returned home and he called the police anyway to report the accident. The transcript from the call is pretty uneventful. He just states his name and tells the operator he saw a young lady who crashed her car. There's no blood and the airbags are deployed. He says that she's shaken up and there's heavy damage to the front of the car. The first officer arrived approximately 7 minutes after Butch made the call. The car is still there, but Maura is nowhere to be found. Sergeant Cecil Smith of the Haverhill Police Department arrived at the crash scene at approximately 7:46 p.m. When he arrived, the crash Saturn was locked, and he noted there was no driver present. The rear of the vehicle was still partially in the roadway, and the front of the car was angled into a snowbank. Sergeant Smith examined the vehicle from the outside. Then he looked through the windows. The airbags had deployed and the front windshield had a large spiderweb break. He saw an open container of wine, and wine was spilled in the car. He saw maps and textbooks on the seat. He didn't find any blood or anything showing the driver was injured to a point where she couldn't walk away. They didn't find any footprints leading into the woods next to the road or footprints through people's yards. But it's snowing, it's dark out, and this back road doesn't have any street lamps. Sergeant Smith spoke to the bus driver, Butch Atwood, who had stopped to help. Again, Butch confirmed the driver had been a young woman. She appeared shaken but not visibly injured, and she insisted that she didn't need his help because she already called AAA. Butch says that after speaking with her, he drove the short distance home and placed the call to 911. So the short window of time from when Butch left the scene of the crash and when the first officer arrived remains the most crucial missing time frame in the case. We're talking less than 10 minutes. Where did Maura go in that 10 minutes? So at this point, the police officer isn't too concerned. He sees the open box of wine in the car and it's spilled all over the seats and the floor. He sees the textbooks. He thinks this is a young girl in college who is drinking and driving. She crashed her car and now she's hiding to avoid getting arrested. She likely called a friend in the area and was picked up and would be back for her car tomorrow when she's sober. Sergeant Smith notified dispatch that there was a vehicle accident with no driver present. At this point, the situation was treated as a routine single-vehicle collision involving a missing driver, something that occurs all the time in rural areas when drivers leave the scene to avoid DUI charges. Nothing about this scene screams that a kidnapping or murder took place here. It looks like the only crime that took place was drinking and driving. The most logical assumption was that the driver had walked away and would reappear shortly or maybe the next morning. The fire department and first responders arrived and they assisted with a preliminary search of the roadside. They knocked on nearby homes, including Butch's house. No one had seen Maura after Butch spoke to her. They ran the vehicle's registration and it came back registered to Maura's father, Fred. The search at this stage was still informal. They're mainly just checking the roadside and immediate surroundings for any sign of someone who might be disoriented or walking around looking for help. Since the car was partially blocking the road, a tow truck was called to have it removed. The car was taken to Lavoie's Towing in the nearby town. Around an hour after police got there, a search dog team was brought in by the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department. The dog tracked a scent believed to match Maura's from the vehicle and along the road heading east. The scent trail stopped approximately 100 yards away near the intersection of Route 112 and Bradley Hill Road. The fact that the scent stopped on the roadside has led some to suggest she may have gotten into a vehicle. However, we know this from other cases. Search dogs can lose scent trails for reasons including shifts in the wind pattern or passing vehicles disturbing the snow and the ground. As police are wrapping up to leave, their belief at this very early stage was that Maura had left the scene intentionally. She possibly accepted a ride and she would likely reappear or contact her family soon. They also concluded there was no evidence of foul play. There was no evidence of injury. There was no indication she walked into the woods and got lost. Butch was the only neighbor on this road who spoke to Maura. Others watched from windows, but the houses were far apart and there's trees, and no one reported seeing a second vehicle at the scene. No one saw someone walking along the road. No one saw a person calling out for help or a struggle or a pursuit. All in all, the situation was not yet considered a missing persons emergency. The next morning, this is Tuesday, February 10th, Haverhill police confirmed that no one had contacted them to claim the car, and Maura had not returned to the crash site. Police contacted Fred Murray, since that is who the car was registered to. Fred's a little confused because his daughter is supposed to be in school at her college campus in Massachusetts. Why on earth would she be traveling through New Hampshire? Plus, he had just spent the weekend hanging with Maura. She never said a word about traveling. Because Maura had not reappeared, local and state law enforcement started a more formal search effort. This time, they're going to cover a wider area and use more search dogs, and they'll use helicopters with thermal imaging. The search dogs followed the trail the exact same as the dog before them. This dog stopped alerting at the same place the last one did when it got to the road. Dad Fred immediately began traveling north to New Hampshire. Maura's sister Julie, an officer in the Army at the time and stationed nearby, also began coordinating searches with family. Other family members and close friends were quick to act as well. Fred arrived in Haverhill the following day. When he met with police, he stressed that Maura's disappearance was completely out of character. He did not believe she had chosen to leave voluntarily or run away from her responsibilities. He emphasized that yes, Maura had been stressed out lately. Nothing in her life would cause her to not contact her family, though. Even if she was mad at a family member, she would just contact another one. She wouldn't cut off her entire family completely. The family began distributing flyers and asking residents if anyone had seen a woman walking along the road that night, but none reported having seen her. Maura's disappearance officially transitioned into a missing persons case. The reasons for this were because she hadn't contacted family, she hadn't reappeared at her dorm, she hadn't accessed bank accounts, her cell phone had not been used, and no one had reported giving her a ride. This is basically a 5-alarm worst-case scenario. More ground and aerial searches took place, but still no sign of Maura anywhere. Let's get into the theories. Did Maura voluntarily disappear? So the only thing that gives me a feeling that there's a slight chance is because all this stuff was found in Maura's car, which was locked, makeup, CDs, etc. What wasn't found was her debit card, her credit cards, and her cell phone. However, none of these show that they were ever used again. Also, some of the individual bottles of liquor were missing from the car. These items, still today in 2025, have not been located. We know she lied to her professors and said there was a death in the family and she would be out for a week. She had called around inquiring about rental properties in Vermont and New Hampshire. We learned 3 months after Maura disappeared that there was an alleged sighting of her that night. The reason it took 3 months to find out about this is because the guy who reported it was confused about the dates. So a contractor says that on the night of February 9th, he saw a young person moving quickly on foot eastbound on Route 112. This area was almost 5 miles from where Maura's car was crashed. He described what the person was wearing and it matched Maura. So he didn't initially report this to police because he wasn't sure of the date. 3 months later, he's reviewing his work records and he realized he had spotted that person the same night Maura disappeared. I know some may be wondering about her boyfriend. He was questioned by police and cleared as a suspect, but something odd happened. He was on a plane flying to New Hampshire to assist with the search, and he had his cell phone turned off. When he landed, he had a voicemail that sounded like someone crying. The call was traced to a calling card issued by the Red Cross. We know Maura cleared out her bank account. She withdrew the $280 she had. She packed up her makeup, her clothes, and toothbrush. She had a lot of stress with school. She had 2 car accidents in 1 week. Is it possible she abandoned her life and started over? People rarely abandon their lives with only $280. It's a lot harder to start over somewhere than most people think. You would need a whole new ID and social security number, which is really hard to do. To completely erase yourself with no digital footprint is damn near impossible these days. Many years ago, it was a lot easier, but in 2004, it would be pretty hard to do. There's also been no confirmed sightings in over 20 years. The next theory is that Maura wandered into the woods after the crash and died of hypothermia. This is February in New Hampshire. It's brutally cold out and it's dark. This is how a lot of disappearances end. The issue with this theory is that there were massive ground, aerial, and cadaver dog searches with no human remains showing up, which is unusual. The area has been searched repeatedly for 20 plus years and nothing has been found. Was Maura abducted? Did she encounter someone who harmed her? So this area was rural, but passing cars do exist. There was a 7 to 10 minute window from when Butch last saw her and when the first officer got there. We know there's been cases of abduction near stalled or crashed cars, but there was no evidence of a struggle and no confirmed suspects or leads. A lot of people bring up Butch Atwood. He was not an official suspect that I can find. He was just a witness. I don't think the guy was involved. I'm sure if he was, we would know by now. According to reporting by WMUR, Butch passed away in 2009. I doubt anyone she personally knew was involved. She was in the middle of nowhere and didn't tell anyone, not even her family and boyfriend, where she was going. No one close to her has ever been tied to her disappearance. People like to bring up the name Sergeant Cecil Smith. He was the police officer who was the first person to arrive at the scene. This guy really got dragged through the mud by a lot of podcast hosts and some who believe he has something to do with Maura's disappearance. He retired as the police chief in 2010. Well, in 2018, at age 65, Cecil took his own life. Many thought this was due to all the harassment he received over the years. His family stated that he had a mild form of dementia at the time of his death. His granddaughter had made a comment somewhere and someone posted it on Reddit. Again, on Reddit. It read, "Before I start, I am a grandchild of Cecil Smith and I know him very, very well. The harassment and bullying is not what caused him to do this to himself. It was, as my family completely believes, mental health issues that got the best of him. He was starting to get dementia, and he had seen people who had lived out the rest of their lives with it, and he did not want to live with that. If you had ever met him, you would have had no idea he had dementia. He still remembered mostly everyone and everything, but some things were getting rusty, like some of the languages he had learned." That is so sad. So yeah, I don't think Sergeant Smith was involved, but a lot of people seem to think he was, and he got a lot of online harassment because of it. There is also the A-frame house theory. So there's this old A-frame house 1 mile from the crash site. A local guy allegedly bragged that he was involved, and a cadaver dog alerted in the house years later. But searches and soil tests did not provide any conclusive evidence. This theory originated from rumors, and nothing solid ever came from it that I can find. An article I found from 2019 by CBS News stated that Dad Fred believes his daughter was killed and buried here. In that same article, law enforcement followed up by saying, quote, "This area was searched by police in the past, including with dogs, and nothing of significance was discovered." Fred countered this by saying, "I don't believe it." He said, "If you searched before, you missed it. If you brought your cadaver dog in, something is wrong with your cadaver dog." I know someone is out there who is saying, "Sherry, you didn't mention the fingerprints found in her car that suddenly came to light in 2024. So allegedly there were fingerprints found on a CD in her car that belonged to someone who went to Maura's former school, West Point, that was a troubled person. I don't know enough about this to speak on it, and everything I found contradicts other articles. There's like back and forth. But a quick Google search will tell you everything you need to know about the person whose fingerprints were allegedly on the CD. The main two theories that law enforcement believe was the outcome are either that she died of exposure or she was abducted in those few minutes. The Murray family has had other tragedies since Maura's disappearance. Her older sister Kathleen passed away in 2021. She was only 44 years old and died of cancer. Her older brother, Fred Jr., passed away as well in 2024. I know Maura's sister Julie created her own podcast called Media Pressure. She created this to help turn off all the background noise in the case and just provide more info about who Maura was as a person. It's a lengthy, several-part series I would definitely check out. The reviews on it are mostly positive ones, and you get to hear from her family themselves. I will link this podcast in my show notes so you can check it out for more in-depth coverage. I think what makes people so captivated by this case is the fact that she disappeared in a very short window of time. She lied to Butch and told him she just talked to AAA and they were on their way, but no tow truck was on its way. We know she lied about calling AAA because of her cell phone records showing no call took place. Also, there wasn't cell phone service in this area anyway. If this was an abduction and murder, it certainly wasn't planned. No one knew she would be coming through the area and that she would crash her car at this exact spot. It's like a murderer would have had to have been waiting there for something like this to happen. It's been almost 22 years and her family is still searching for answers. I did read an article, and unfortunately I can't remember where I read it, so I can't cite it here. But Dad Fred, who is in his 80s now, had said that he doesn't even care about prosecution. It's gotten to that point now. He just wants his daughter back. If someone took Maura that night, just bring her home. No questions asked. If Maura is alive today in 2025, she is 43 years old. The FBI has released age progression photos of what she would possibly look like today. I truly hope that Maura is found someday soon and that her family can finally receive the answers they've been waiting for. It's been such a long and painful journey for them. It's been filled with uncertainty, heartbreak, and endless searching. They deserve clarity, peace, and the chance to heal. No family should have to live with lingering unknown answers. And I sincerely hope that someday soon the truth comes forward so they can finally have the closure they need. That's it for this week, and I'll see you all again soon. Take care, and much love to you all.